Joining us live now for more on this is US political expert with the University of Sydney, Simon Jackman. Simon, thank you for your time. The US has reached its debt limit. What happens now?
What does happen now? Well, you heard in the report from Annalise that the US Treasury does have this wriggle room, a little bit of moving money that would ordinarily go in month-to-month topping up, putting a cushion under other programs. So other programs, key among them, entitlement programs, won't be getting advanced top-ups. That money will have to go in the first order of business to service US debt obligations. But that runs out, and I'm surprised that they think they can get away with that until June of this year. But that's on the economic and the technical logistics side of this. The real issue here is a political question, and it is a hell of an issue for this new Republican Congress and everything they've been through, the controversy over getting a speaker elected and the divisions that revealed, for this issue to come onto their plate so early. This is why I think Speaker McCarthy just can't roll over on this. He's got to show to the people that put him into the Speaker's chair that he is going to be very, pardon the metaphor, very hairy-chested on this and take a big stick and at least play an extremely strong game with the Biden administration on this issue, which is every time it comes up when a Republican Congress, a Republican-controlled Congress, it is a huge challenge for Republican political leadership.
Is that your prediction? Do you think we will see the House Speaker really be strong on this issue?
Yeah, look, I do think so. I think he's got no other choice. I think there's going to be two games going on. On the talk shows and the morning politics roundup on the breakfast TV shows and the Sunday morning shows, you'll see, I think, messages being put out to Republican grassroots. But I think behind the scenes, you'll see typically what always happens, and that is some so-called adults in the room. And you heard that grab from Speaker Mitch McConnell, the Senate leader, and he'll be one of them trying to do the right thing here. On the other hand, keep an eye on, there was also a real interesting grab there from Senator Manchin from West Virginia, a Democrat, who I think is the elephant in the room is just how big this debt is getting. It's got to be close to 200% of US GDP now. At some point, the rubber's got to hit the road. I think finding out where everybody's fault lines are and what is the coalition that can come together. And this is where I get back to the politics, Gabrielle, where it is so hard for a Republican speaker, because how do these votes typically get up? Republicans split among themselves. And when you've just assumed the leadership, the idea you're bringing a vote that absolutely must pass, but you know it's going to divide your own side of the Congress, boy, oh boy, that is difficult politics. And so they're going to kick the can for a little while. Let the adults in the room, I think, stitch up a deal that everybody can vote with. And for McCarthy, he's got to get some political upside in the short term and prepare for what is going to be a big political hit when he's got to preside over a vote that many, many Republicans will detest having to do, vote for an increase in the debt ceiling. But they're going to have to do it. The question is when and what price can they extract from the Biden administration. Right now they're saying zero. I doubt that'll be the case. I think something will be negotiated in due course.
And it's not like it's not divided enough already. On the financial aspect of all this, what are the global ramifications if there was a national default?
Look, if all of a sudden, I mean, the ball would be in the court. What's the old saying? When you owe the bank $10,000, the bank's got a lot of power over you. When you owe the bank $1 trillion, you've got a lot of power over the bank.
Right.
It's a little bit like that for the US. The question is, what would the rating agencies do if all of a sudden the United States actually did default? It is such a huge linchpin in the global economy, US government-backed debt. The idea that would the rating agencies do what they would do if it were Australia or a small country or an Australian state, say, and say, oh, wow, well, your debt now carries a risk premium. And so if that were to happen, interest rates would go up around, there would be a colossal interest rate shock around the entire planet that would touch mums and dads in Australia, along with mums and dads in the US. Mums and dads everywhere would be affected by that. So, but the question is, would the rating agencies do that, start to price US debt as carrying a risk premium that's got to service cover the prospect at this point in the scenario we're talking about, a realistic prospect of the US defaulting. Now, I just think that may even be a bridge too far for the rating agencies. But no one wants to play this game. No one wants to run this experiment of an entity that's carrying $31 trillion in debt. All of a sudden, that debt is now being rolled over with a risk premium attached. The cost of that and the way that would echo through the global economy, no one wants to run that experiment, and no one in the US for sure.
Just finally, Simon, on another issue, the US Supreme Court has failed to identify who was behind the leak of a draft version of its ruling overturning the 1973 Roe v. Wade decision. What do you make of all this?
Look, it was very unbecoming that draft opinions were being leaked, clearly in a way, I think, to soften up public opinion around a contentious decision, and to, I think, box in opposition. Once the opinion's out, I think expectations became, well, that's what the court is going to do. And to some extent, it broke the internal norms of the court, where those sorts of deliberations go on between the justices and their staffs in confidence. The idea that they weren't able to identify from whom or from where the leak originated, that's not a surprise either. Everybody would have gone to ground on this. Look, the scuttlebutt is that it came probably from one of the conservative justices. The names, Clarence Thomas or Justice Alito's and his office have been the two people and the two sets of people talked about as the likely source of this. But the idea that an investigation failed to resolve, the court is a bit of an entity unto itself. The idea is someone's going to investigate with any prospect of an authoritative finding the internal workings of the Supreme Court. By design, it is supposed to be separate from the other branches of government and sort of almost sits above those usual sorts of processes. So I'm not surprised by the outcome, yet remain disappointed that long-standing, I think, good norms of confidentiality among the justices were breached in this instance on an extremely momentous decision.